How can you deconstruct the administrative state when you have all of these critical jobs, the day-to-day management jobs, still open 6 weeks in?
It's a great question, but I mean, like, one of the reasons I'm told, I've talked to several Republicans on Capitol Hill and others who actually want these jobs. There is a loyalty test, first and foremost. If you said anything against the president during the primary cycle, you're likely out. It's this very rigorous process here, and it is it's taking much longer than it should be. One of the other reasons is the lobbying ban. Some people do not want to go work in this administration because they're prohibited from working for 5 years as lobbyists. So I think that that is one of the sort of draining the swamp things, if you will. But beyond that, first and foremost, one of the biggest reasons all those things are empty, because there were a lot of people who were not supportive of Donald Trump at the beginning, and now they're not welcome.
But I actually think Stephen Bannon and President Trump, by extension, doesn't mind that these positions are unfilled, because deconstructing the administrative state also means not allowing the federal government to do a lot of things. I think that that's, you know, when you talk to conservatives, that's the biggest frame of mind difference between a Republican administration and a Democratic one, particularly this kind of Republican administration. They don't want the government to do things. And sometimes the way to not get the government to do things is simply to not have people implementing regulations, you know, running basic functions, and as disruptive as that seems, I think that's actually what they're going for, and Steve Bannon really laid it out there.
On the other hand, though, rolling back what the Obama administration has done and what the Republicans find so objectionable about the Obama administration is going to take some very active work. There is a Congressional Review Act that allows Congress to act on some of the regulations that were implemented late in the administration, but that's only 60 legislative days. We are rapidly running out of rules that would cover that. To roll back a lot of the environmental regulations and a lot of the land use regulations, especially out west, they're going to require senior officials at Interior, senior officials at Ag, senior officials in all these sort of sub-cabinet agencies. And in a lot of cases, the irony is, to roll back a regulation, you need to promulgate a new regulation, which then takes, you know, years. As we saw, look, the Obama administration didn't promulgate a lot of these rules late in the day because they just suddenly thought of them. It takes literally years to get something like this through the pipeline. So to deconstruct that administrative state is going to require people, and it's going to require time. And if they skip any step in the process, there are any number of Democratic attorneys general in the states who are going to sue the pants off them.
The career people will make the decision they made yesterday if they don't have somebody from the new administration telling them we're doing things differently from here on forward going to tomorrow. The Steve Bannon appearance at CPAC was part of a remarkable exchange. There have been all these stories about chaos inside the White House, and the White House says this is not true. The White House says to the degree there is chaos, it's the kind of chaos the president likes. He likes people who disagree with each other to fight around him, to have their arguments, and then bring it to him for the answer. So you saw publicly Steve Bannon and the White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus saying everything's great.
Steve is very consistent and very loyal to the agenda, and is a presence that I think is very important to have in the White House, and someone that I work with every second of the day, and actually I cherish his friendship.
Yeah, you know, I can run a little hot on occasions. And Reince is indefatigable. I mean, it's low key, but it's determination. The thing I respect most, and the only way this thing works, is Reince is always kind of steady.
All is well, right? You covered the White House.
They're besties. That's true. Well, I'm going to say this. They really do have different personalities, and so they're not competing with one another in that kind of traditional sense that they have the same personality and are vying for the guy who gets to keep his personality. I think they also both understand that old adage about keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Not to say that they're enemies, but to say that they really represent two different wings of Donald Trump's support system, right?
That's what I found great about that, though. It's, again, not taking sides, that they were openly candid about it. Yeah. He's an establishment guy. Yeah. I'm a spear thrower, and, you know, trying to change the party. And so we're gonna argue a lot. So what?
It kind of doesn't work one without the other, right?
What?
I mean, without Reince, there's no lifeline to Capitol Hill. There's no goodwill or security safety net with Mitch McConnell, with Paul Ryan, with all of that. Without Steve Bannon, there's not that momentum and energy and enthusiasm that Trump needs personally to get excited about every day, and that the administration needs to be kind of the chaos factor or the scare factor. So I think these two men legitimately understand that if they can work well together and block other people in that White House from dividing and conquering, because there are other people in the White House who are
Good.
also leaking.
And
right?
there are a lot of skeptics of whether this controlled chaos can work in the government setting. We're only 6 weeks in. I think we shouldn't rush to judgment. But do you see, I want to add Kellyanne Conway to the mix. She had a TV timeout, if you will, because the White House says, her own colleagues say, this is not the news media say, her own colleagues said, she said some things in some interviews that were viewed as counterproductive. So she disappeared for a little bit. She came back this week, and she says somebody inside the White House is trying to get in her way.
Somebody's trying to stir up trouble, but look, about 5% of what I'm being asked to do in this White House counselor role is TV, and I think that's about right because he's the president now, and he's his own best messenger. There are some people I think trying to get in my way. I've also gobbled up a lot of other people's TV opportunities, so there's some resentment outside, on the outside, I believe, and folks just trying to use me as clickbait and a headline.
Who's trying to get in her way?
Well, I mean, that perfectly encapsulates the problem with this White House. This sniping is happening in public, which is really remarkable, considering that usually at least they try to put on a good face for the public. But, you know, Kellyanne Conway and other officials are warring behind the scenes about some of these issues. There was some genuine people were genuinely upset in some cases that she would go out on television early in the morning, say one thing without necessarily consulting other people in the White House about what the thing is that they wanted the message to be that day. But she does that, I think, in part to sort of demonstrate her independence from that process and from that chain of command. But, you know, the one thing that a lot of observers say about this White House is that there doesn't seem to be very clear hierarchies, and the sort of chain of command is very flat. Everybody is sort of like on the same plane, trying to vie for seniority in that place. And the person who tends to get the blame for that, to Steve Bannon's benefit, is Reince Priebus. He is the keeper of the clocks and the person who makes sure that the trains run on time. And so that one of the benefits of that partnership is that Steve Bannon doesn't get the blame for all of the other stuff that's going on in the White House. Reince Priebus does.
Right, well, we used to call it Clinton time in the Clinton White House. I'm not sure what they're going to call it here when the trains go off the tracks, but we will see. Everybody sit tight now.